everybody, and welcome to another episode of Landscape Marketing Secrets. This week, I'm excited to bring you a very special guest who's going to be offering some of his brilliant insights on business. So we decided we're going to talk about 3 things you need to know for your business. And please join me in welcoming Mr. Chris Thompson from Just Add Water. Hi, Chris, and thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Laura.
And Chris, I've known you, a while now, right?
I would say at least 10 years, right?
Yeah,
I
think
we
so.
both been in the pond business. I've been since mid 2000s. I'm trying to think of what year. What year did you start?
We started the pond, getting into ponds in 2010.
So yeah, over 10 years.
Yeah. So Chris is very well known in the pond community, but he's got lots of advice that's going to be helpful to landscapers as well as pond builders. So let's get right into it, Chris. I asked you to do a tiny bit of homework, as you know, and come up with some advice you would give, not just to new people just starting out, but just anyone in general. And, you were the Aquascape Businessman of the Year, and you have really great advice. So the first thing you mentioned that you wanted to talk a little bit about was a myth you had heard and came up with and followed for a while. And tell me more about that.
I guess so. When I first started my business, I just thought, or I was told, or for whatever reason, I thought if I took care of my customers, that everything else would kind of take care of itself. So I've just always been very customer service orientated, but I never looked at it from the other side. And at some point, I'm a slow learner. It took me a while to realize, like, I can take care of people all day long. They don't give a crap if my business is healthy, if I'm making money, if I'm doing all the right things. Like, they loved me, but at the same time, I didn't know enough about my business that I wasn't doing well in business financially to continue in business. So I kind of learned there's a lot more to it than just taking care of customers. You also have to put yourself first, or the business first, to be able to provide that kind of customer service. It's the what's the saying? When the boat's going to go under, they put a life jacket on yourself before you put a life jacket on other people. And I was kind of doing the opposite. I was just trying to take care of all these people, thinking like, oh, I'll get referrals and I'll get all this stuff, which, hindsight, who cares if you get a referral if you're not making any money from that referral?
Right. And that's, and people, I'm hoping that people don't mean to take advantage of us, but it's kind of easy to do if we don't learn to stand our ground. And that's something, when Matt and I went into business, when I took over the business, Matt wasn't making any money. And part of it was because, like you said, he was being way too nice. And then I got involved.
Have you ever had a customer ask you, are you sure you're making enough on this project?
No.
They want the project well, they want you to do it, but they don't usually volunteer more money.
Right.
But they're willing to pay what's fair. But if you just tell them it's this dollars and it's not really fair to you, they don't know any better.
Right.
So that's the whole point of that thing, is like, you really need to go and understand what stuff's costing you and all that kind of stuff, which is, my big thing is the business numbers, which we talking about that as well. But my weakness used to be my business numbers. I always tell people, hey, I'm kind of a dummy. I was a runner, athlete, I'm a people person. I like working outside. I did really well in school. But I wasn't excited about the financial side of the business.
Oh, yeah.
And, it got to the point where, year after year after year, not making money, for me to realize, like, okay, I have to understand this side of the business or I won't be in business.
So what was it? Was it like one thing that finally changed your mind and made you realize that taking care of the customers wasn't enough on its own?
Yeah, landscapers, right? We're in the Midwest, so we have an off season.
Yeah.
It was, what is it? You get sick and tired of being sick and tired, like trying to figure out, how do I live through the winter?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Like paying off a vendor with a credit card within the year, because you don't have the cash to pay off the vendor, right? At some point I said, we're doing all this stuff right. We're building great features. We're taking care of our customers, but yet we're not making money. And then realizing, like, I don't even know where I'm not making money at. So for me, it was just, and I think I've shared them before. I just started, trying to figure out how to track. And my background, I'm a sports guy. I was a runner, but I played, basketball, and I watched football and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And for me, I can almost relate it to sports. The way my mind works is like, hey, when when professional teams are playing, they have scouts, they have
Right.
a game plan, they have all that stuff. I compare that to like they have a budget, you have a plan of how this is going to go, expectations, setting expectations with the guys. Like, hey, this is a 3-day job, and like knowing it's just kind of like instead of saying like, hey, that's a $10,000 job,
That doesn't
it's
mean
actually,
anything to people because they don't know what your overhead is. They
or it
don't know
doesn't
what
mean
your
anything to
costs
you
are.
either.
Yeah.
Because I used to
Yeah.
do a $10,000 job and have no idea at the very end of it what it cost me because I didn't spend the 2 hours to actually like take receipts and add everything up.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of bidding what I thought it should cost, which I mean I was probably doing more than that, but then it's the whole like, you got your pregame, maybe it's a bid spreadsheet, however you plug it in to get your numbers. And then it's the post game, which should be like in sports, they watch game film. Like, hey, this is what went. Like now you got to review the job. Hey, we budgeted 3 days. It took 4. Let's figure out why. Did I mess up as the bidding guy and not give you enough time, or did you mess up and not run efficient and did the job right? So it's that costing. Once you do that,
Yeah.
once you start doing that, everything else, I think I wouldn't say just falls in line. It just makes everything else easier. A lot of people don't know where to start with
Yeah.
numbers, but it's like having a system to bid a job, and then after the job, costing the job. And then you realize like, well, I got to figure out how to track man hours, or I got to figure out how to track
Right.
this, which leads you into systems, which we're going to talk
And
about as well.
luckily, a lot of people listening use Jobber or something like it, which can really help track hours. But let's go back. Let's start with numbers. So that was the myth is you learned, for number one, you really learned that you needed to understand and learn business
So
for your business to succeed. And you did that through numbers. So tell me a little bit about and I know you are the king of spreadsheets.
Yeah. So the first thing I did actually was to wrap my mind around was actually try to create a budget
Okay.
and try to figure out what my overhead was for the year.
Okay.
And this, back in the day, I was so unorganized. It was like shoe boxes and credit card receipts, and you're trying to figure out, and you just built a really generic spreadsheet to figure out like what is my business actually cost me for the year. Because once I figured that number out, and it was just going through like hours, just going through, I'm trying to catch everything.
Yeah.
Like what's my phone bill, what's all these payments, all this kind of stuff. And once you got that, then it was really easy because I was starting to learn about gross profit.
Right.
At the same time. And if you're shooting for 50% gross profit, it gets pretty easy. If your overhead is going to be 350 grand and you're shooting for 50% gross profit, you easily see that you have to have 700 grand in revenue.
And out of that 350, you're also including enough money for you to live and have a good lifestyle.
Yeah. So I put my salary, like we call our break-even number, I call it the magic number. My guys, everyone in my organization knows that we have a magic number. And I tracked for us to get there, but my magic number has my salary in it.
Okay, perfect. And it's a good salary because that's something a lot of people don't do.
Absolutely.
And that's like, I used to say to my husband, I'm like, it's a hobby. If you're not making money, it's a hobby. It's not a business.
Well, put it this way. What would it cost you to hire someone to do what you do? Because that's what you should be paying yourself. If you are taking pay cut, you can still say it's not even really head trash, but the way I have my thing set up is the last X dollars. If you want, I can tell you the number. The last X dollars of my gross profit is it's like my bonus, but it's not even my bonus. So for example, our overhead this year is 740 grand.
Okay.
The last $100,000 is my end of the year payment. So I take the last $100,000 in gross profit from 640 to 740. That's for me. Plus on top of that, I already have like a regular salary I'm getting.
Are you an S Corp or an LLC?
We are S Corp.
Okay.
So we were an LLC. I think we just became an S Corp. So actually I'm on payroll now, this is the first year. So I get a regular paycheck every 2 weeks, just like my crew. But then, and I'm not a CPA or accountant. I think I just take what do they call them?
It's a distribution.
That's the word right there.
Yeah, we've been an S Corp for a while. So we love our S Corp distributions.
So the very end of once I hit so 640 is, my break even before my last 100K. Once we hit 690, I get 50 grand. Once we hit 740, I get 50 grand. And then now we're at 0. And then everything past 740 in gross profit, that's business income. And I have bonuses for me and employees off of that.
Okay, perfect.
I'm taking a regular salary as well on top of that with the payroll stuff.
What do you recommend for people that, and like you said, I know people that I'm like, oh my God, I would have a heart attack. They literally go, or they find, even worse, they find an accountant and hand them a shoebox. What would you say is a good place to start? You started with shoeboxes?
I used to do it. No, that's how I did every year, is shoeboxes. Yeah. And now it's so much easier because almost everything I buy is with a credit card. We have the credit cards and accounts with vendors.
It's all trackable through Quick. Yes. Do you use QuickBooks Online?
We do use QuickBooks Online. So we have a bookkeeper and, just gets plugged in. My office manager is like, making sure we have the receipts. She organizes all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Receipts are getting turned on and all that kind of good stuff. But, our bookkeeper, it gets updated. I can see my, what our profit is on QuickBooks whenever I want.
Yep.
So everything gets plugged in there. Tax returns super easy versus, back in the day, I used to have to take that shoebox and then I would have to categorize that and add stuff up with a calculator. Now it's just all there and the CPA throws the numbers in the tax return or whatever.
So I think that's really important because for two reasons. I can't tell you how many even clients I talk to. I'm like, well, how are you doing this year? They're like, I don't know. I have to check. I haven't done my numbers yet. I'm like, what? Our bookkeeper, everything is cleaned up, organized, and finished monthly. And that's one piece of advice that sounds like you're saying that I'm going to reiterate is that you can't wait till the end of year to do these things.
So I would say, and this, we're not as good as you. QuickBooks, like I said, I don't understand all that kind of stuff. And I think part of it, I am talking to your bookkeeper and we're probably going to move.
Good. Okay.
Because I want someone to treat me like an idiot business owner, explain like all the
She's amazing. I mean, I love my bookkeeper, as you know.
Out of necessity is, we started, spreadsheet wise, I track every job on there.
Right.
So I can plug in at the end of it's a lot of data entry for me, but it makes sense in my head. And I can basically I can go back to the sports analogy and I know every time if we won, if we lost, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So, even the business part of it, to me, if we hit, my magic number 740, if we hit 740 on a dot, that's a draw. We didn't win. We didn't lose. That's a draw.
Right.
We really need to win every year.
Okay.
So everything past 740 is a victory. And I'm selling stuff, if you have your, for example, I know my break even is right like 1.39. I got to do 1.39 in revenue at 55% or 54 point whatever percent. I know all this stuff. And as I'm selling stuff, I'm plugging it in. I know exactly what we have sold to date. So to me, knowledge is power. Where before I used to have, like you said, I have no idea how I'm doing this year. I got X dollars in the bank. I must be doing pretty good.
When people say that to me, I'm like, really? How much do you pay yourself? Oh, I don't know. I'm like, really?
That was me 6, 7, 8 years ago. That was still me.
So I think one thing that you're saying, or that a piece of advice from this is get a bookkeeper. Get someone, especially if you don't understand it, and 99% of us do not understand it because this isn't what we do for a living, hire someone that does.
Yeah, but also hire someone that, because I have that right now and I want better, is I want someone that not only understands it, but then can explain it to me.
Yep.
QuickBooks is great, but I can't understand. I need someone to hold my hand, explain to me, someone that understands, your profit and loss statement, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, then you're really going to love. I mean, so the person that Chris is talking about is Cycle CPA, Carla Iniguez. And she's part of the Landscape Business Owners Facebook group. And she's someone I recommend and work with. And what I love about them is they stick within the green industry. And do you know about her quarterly benchmarking calls that they do?
Yes. I mean, I was at the winter boot camp, right?
Yeah.
That's where I first heard her. I was like, oh, yeah. I want this. But then it was like, okay, well, this is March or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know if it's a good time to move bookkeepers, like when I'm about to be chasing my tail because it's spring. So
she shows us, every quarter, Matt and I sit down with her and she goes through, she explains everything. This is why you can't just look at profit and loss. This is why you have to look at this. And this is where you're doing compared to the rest of the industry. And it's great because I don't understand. I mean, QuickBooks, I'm like level 1 out of 20 levels, I can input what I can input, and then I know how to check out my profit and loss. But They even tell me my profit and loss every month for both net and gross.
Yeah.
So Angel categorizes that for me and lets me know. So it's very helpful. So, okay. So that's number 2 really is your numbers. And the number 3, which you've already kind of touched upon, is systems. And this is something I've been talking a lot about as well. And this was actually our word of our year with our business coach was systems, because our systems were just not there.
Well, I think as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
like that, to me, the word systems, I mean, is like corporate America. You gotta have
Okay.
a system for everything, right? And as an entrepreneur, being a small business, that's why we're better than all these big companies, is that we're more personable and we're unique and every customer is different, blah, 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 blah. And then you realize, like, you know what? You can't do anything without systems.
Right.
So I'd be careful with using it as a words of the year, because your employees, I found out, like, I remember one year, our word of the year was efficiency. I wanted to be more efficient. And that sounds great until your guys are kind of like, you know, now Chris is just trying to make money and blah, blah. You know, it's like,
Right.
you know what I mean? So systems, and the systems drive our employees crazy, but it's like, you got to do this. You know, we got to, you know, use our CRM right, use our,
Yeah.
you know, it's down to the receipts, the guys, when they, you know, do the right thing with the receipts.
Yep.
So we're not chasing people for receipts, like everything. I'll never forget, you know, we're pond builders, and this was 2016 probably.
Yeah.
And I was out of the field. I had a foreman, and stuff was taking too long. And I had trained this guy. You know, Aquascape has 20 steps. It's so easy to do this stuff right. I showed him how to do 20 steps when I was the foreman. He was my lead. And then I stepped away to grow the business, and I was out in the field, and stuff was taking for so long. Well, he had this, they got pregnant, him and his wife, and they had a kid that was not going to, birth defects, wasn't going to make it. So it was a really hard time for him, and he missed some work for it.
I remember the story. Yeah.
So I was kind of thrust back on the job site. I just basically said, "Hey, Andy, take as much time as you need."
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. I mean, it's their first child. They, you know, anyway, I went back on the job site and could not believe how they had taken the 20-step process and like turned it upside down and just silly stuff.
Okay.
And it took me 2 days to realize, like, this is why a 3-day project is taking 5.
Okay.
And it was like I said, like, I couldn't believe it. And this is where I was like, this is a system, and we've gone off the road, and now so it was like, okay, I had to put the car back on the road. And I figured out, maybe part of it was me.
Yeah.
But they weren't doing the right thing, and I wasn't, but I was on site to figure it out. Like, so
according to our business coach, it's always our fault, which, it is, because we had an issue just recently talking about systems where, there was some confusion about our commission structure. And, I've talked to you about this, and I just posted for you, showed you what we came up with, but someone was getting upset and thought Matt, my husband, was stealing his commissions. And, and Matt and I took full responsibility for that and saw how he could have thought that. So instead of just being annoyed in the past, we would have just like gotten pissed off and be like, well, he doesn't get it, blah, blah, blah. No, this is our fault. And it's our responsibility to create a system, share that system, and reiterate that system on a regular basis. A system can't be something you create, show everyone once, and be like, okay, we're done. It has to be continually discussed, continually. Think about your kids. You can't just tell them something once. At least mine took the trash out yesterday and they didn't put a fresh bag in. And he goes, well, you didn't tell me to. I'm like, gosh, it's 13. I'm like, really? But maybe I didn't explain the system well enough. When you take a trash bag out, you put a fresh one in. But, that same thing that you're saying is we get frustrated and we think, and that's going to lead right into your next topic of duplicating yourself. But we think people understand what we're thinking, and they don't, nor should they, or should we expect them to.
Yeah, like you said, they don't realize I have to do that every time.
You always want a trash bag in?
So like our biggest challenge in our business is creating systems for everything we do. And then getting my guys
creating systems what?
That for everything we do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's no different than we have a growing maintenance department.
Yeah.
So when you go from 1 tech to 2 techs, your new tech has to do it just like your first tech.
Yep.
because in our mind, there can't be any difference if tech 1 or tech 2 is at our client's house, because then you get the whole client like, well, I like so-and-so better because
We just had that, and we have to say to people that everyone's trained the same, and that's what we've learned to say is that whether you have this person or this person, they know the same, they've learned the same, and you're going to love them too, because you don't ever want all your customers to get used to one person because you don't know what's going to happen to that person.
Yeah, we have a few clients where so-and-so has to be there, and we try to keep it for like our spring clean outs, like, Connor going out the same. Got a great story about that, but Connor going out the same customers each year. That way it's easier for them to get upsells. The relationship, they don't see turnover in the crew if it's the same crew leader out there. We try to do that. When you have hundreds of clients, it doesn't always work out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if your pond's getting cleaned, it shouldn't be any difference if Connor's cleaning it or Clay's cleaning it, whatever.
Right.
And it drives us crazy that if, the customer has to have so-and-so out there. Well,
and, I don't want people to get turned off, like you said, by the word systems and think it's like corporate and it's really complicated. It's just writing things down. Like it's as simple as a piece of paper.
Process.
And it's just a document that just says, and even our system for answering the phones or for getting back to people. It starts with the answering service. Then it goes to Sandy. Then it goes to here. And it's just like a list of 5 or 6 things. And we just put it on paper and we put it all into a Google Drive.
Yeah, it's no different than, Aquascape is great with their systems, 20 steps, 20 steps to build a pond. Everyone needs to know the 20 steps. Well, maybe there's 20 steps to get from out of the shop in the morning.
Right.
Everyone needs to do the same thing. So that way, if I go jump in one of the trucks, it's having the system, all the stuff's there. Like, I think there's going to be a product X on the truck because it's supposed to be on the truck. But
that's Matt's pet peeve. Matt's pet peeve. Where's that?
There's nothing worse than being 20 minutes from somewhere and realizing, like, I don't have a clean out pump. We build ponds. We don't have a pump in here to pump water out.
Yep. I lent it to blah, blah. I'm like,
yeah.
And Matt's like, I'm going to kill someone. But then we realized after he gets angry and perhaps flies off the hook, then he's like, okay. And so now he's working on, it's so funny you said that, he's working on a checklist. And, sorry, I just tripped on my own.
Yeah, we have a checklist for if you're doing a spring clean out, this should all be in the truck.
Yep. But even for our builds, we have a checklist of what you should bring. So we actually put it on the door of the truck. And we're creating a system now where you have to check off each time. We want to make it on a like a dry erase type thing. Oh, look at that, showing me his.
We all have these binders.
Yep. And so you have to check off and sign that you did all this. So these are ways that's a system, but it sounds complicated and annoying. But once you create it, in theory, it should take care of itself.
Yeah, it's anything with growth. When you're basically the company and you have, my pet peeve in the industry is people that have helpers. Drives me bonkers. You don't have helpers, you have teammates, you have employees, whatever. They're not helpers.
No.
If they're helpers, they probably shouldn't be there. But no, like, when it was just me and a couple guys, like, I was responsible for making sure everything was on the truck. Well, everything got on the truck almost every day. Well, once you're no longer in charge, the person in charge now doesn't know as much as you, or they can't read your mind. So you have to have it written. You have to have a system written down, all the stuff.
So that leads us perfectly into our final topic or final piece of advice, which is how to duplicate your staff.
Yeah. So that was the other myth to me, or if you look at corporate America, or I've actually had employees that had this mindset was, if I teach everything I know to the guy that works on my crew, then I won't have a job because they'll take my job and they'll force me out. I've actually had guys that have worked for me that have done their best to undermine the people above them. They get them fired because they think that's how they move up. We've had multiple people like that. I'm sure people listening to this have people on their staff to do the same thing, or have had the people do this. I try in my organization to teach my people that literally you cannot move up to the next level until there's someone there to take your spot, right? If you're a foreman and you want to run, you want to be the operations manager, but you're really good at a foreman, I need someone to take your spot because you can't. I can give you more responsibility, but you still have to run the job sites, right? So no different than, I'm just always saying you got to train the person below you. You have to be getting trained from the piece. If you want to look at it like a hierarchy thing.
Okay.
You got to be training like the laborer to take your spot as the lead, or like the experienced installer. So they're there to take your spot so you can move up and start running crews. And you got to
So
get, yeah.
it's funny you say that, because something that both Matt and I are dealing with in different levels with both businesses is with Aqua Reali. He and he and I had a nice talk about this the other day, and we're, better at communicating without me getting annoyed, because that doesn't help. Because we're a husband and wife team, and that's its own a certain excitement there, or complications. But one thing that I noticed him doing, and I get it, was it's easier for him to do it himself than to take
Yes.
the time to show. And even with fixing things, he would let the guys, if there was a problem or a callback, he would go do it. And because he's like, well, it's just easier because I know what to do. But if he's the one always fixing it, then guess what? He's never getting out of that position.
Yeah. So
And
you got,
even with, so with pricing, he meets with our office manager every week, once a week at night, and they talk about pricing everything. And I'm like, you have to put our maintenance manager in there. And finally, he started this week. So he's like, well, I don't know if he's going to complicate it. I'm like, no, he's going to take over that part so you can do something else.
correct. Yeah. I mean, that's we have Will in the
Yeah.
organization. And Will is we have a new building, and we have like a firewall. And on one side of the firewall is the office. So it's me, the marketing person, the office manager.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side of the wall is construction and techs. So
Okay.
our thing is like, that side of the wall is his, this side of the wall is mine. I sell most of the work. He produces most of the work, but he's that guy. Whenever there's a problem, they call, Will's got to go fix it. And I'm always on Will's case. Make these people fix their own mistakes. Stop cleaning up their messes.
Yep.
Because that's how they grow.
And I
I'm
have the
fine with
same,
mistakes.
it's hard.
You make a
Sorry.
mistake once or twice, that's great. They need to learn from it, so they, one, don't make the mistake, but then two, can show the person that works with them every day, hey, we keep messing this up. This is how we don't do that.
And so you have to realize it might take you longer to teach, but then once they learn, you're not going to have to be involved.
Hopefully.
You're always going to have to be involved to some always. But it's even something I found with Landscape Marketing Secrets, is I have someone that helps me with some stuff. And when he does, he makes an error, does something, I would always fix it. And then one month I finally realized I had to send, he's like, why are you sending everything back to me? I'm like, I'm sorry, you always make this level of mistakes. I've just corrected them in the past. So once he realized that, he's like, oh, I had no idea. I'm like, I know. And that's my fault, because I wasn't teaching you. I was just fixing it for you, and we were moving on.
Yeah.
So I think
Really
duplicating your staff is brilliant advice. These are all great things.
And with the duplicating staff too, is like, we, once again, systems, and we updated them this last year, but we actually have, I could find it, but it's just like all the different jobs available in our company.
Okay.
And we had to put down like what all the responsibilities and what we expected from each people. And it's been great because we updated it and we did reviews with them. And we basically say, hey, check off everything you think you're good at.
Yep. We're working on that right now with the mastery ladder, because we have one guy. We have a situation where we're going to be promoting someone and someone else is not getting promoted, and they started at the same time. And I already know this guy's going to take it personally, and he's going to get really upset. So before we even talk to them about it, we are being super careful to document everything that needs to be done under each position, so that we can show them both, here's what you've accomplished, here's what you need to accomplish to get to that part. Yeah. And you're not in competition with anyone except yourself.
Yeah. So to that, like if they hit the foreman position where they can run a job, and let's say we only have 2 crews and there's not that job available, I still going to pay them like a foreman. So that's what I'm telling them. I was like, hey, this is where you can make more money. You do this stuff.
Yeah.
Because it would be awesome to have a crew of 3 out there that could all be foremen.
Yeah.
How efficient and competent would that crew be? How much would they dominate? And yeah, you're going to pay more than having to pay a laborer, but you're going to do 10 times more.
Right.
So, that was one of the things, like we had one, but it wasn't very good. And we really updated this winter, and we used it for reviews in the spring. It was great.
Yep. Perfect.
And everyone got a copy. I think we have them posted back in the employee area.
Perfect.
So they can look at it and say, okay, like this is the stuff I got to work on to be XYZ at the end of the year.
So we have probably given people already, and I know you and I could talk for hours, and we have talked for hours about this. You and I both love the business part. But just to reiterate for anyone listening, we talked about making sure you're taking care of your business, not just your customers. We talked about the importance of knowing your numbers. We talked about the importance of having systems in place. And we talked about how you need to duplicate your staff and train so that you don't always have to do everything. And I think if people implemented even one of these things, they would see a change in their business. If they've implemented all of them, they too could be a business person, not businessman, business person of the year someday. So Chris, thank you so much.
Better than that is you would make a lot more money.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And you and I both know
your employees would make more money, and you would create more opportunity in your organization.
And that's huge. We have someone's like, don't you worry about paying out commissions? I'm like, no, I'm thrilled. I want everyone to make more money, not just me. I want everyone to make money because then we're all happy.
Correct.
So, nope, Chris, this has been brilliant. Any one final tidbit you want to share or final words?
I don't think I have anything. I mean,
we shared it all.
Yep, we shared it all.
Okay, well, how about if I give the final tidbit?
Absolutely.
There you go. My final tidbit is don't try to do all this at once because you're going to be overwhelmed. Pick one thing that is the first thing, whether it's systems or numbers, unfortunately. You have to figure out how to get started. Don't say to yourself, I'm going to fix 10 problems at once. Look at what your biggest problem is right now and tackle that first.
It's the eat elephant, one thing at a time.
Yep. Was it you that told me that? Someone?
One bite at a time. That's how you eat an elephant.
Okay, and I was cracking up at that because I always heard it's how do you feed an elephant, not eat an elephant.
It's eat an elephant, one bite at a time.
It's how do you feed an elephant? Who the heck wants to eat an elephant? Anyway, you were saying that to me and I was cracking up when you said it because I never heard that. But however you look at it, if you're eating the elephant, if you're feeding the elephant, one bite at a time, either way.
One bite at a time.
Thank you so much, Chris. You have been wonderful. And for everyone else listening, please like, subscribe, and listen to my podcast and my YouTube channel. And text me with any questions, as always, 215-805-8257. And thanks so much for listening. Bye-bye.